All right, you guys, it's 9 sharp. Good morning. Thank you for everybody who connected on the call before 9 o'clock. And welcome to our English 2014 calls here in our personal development. I'm not even going to call them leadership anymore because I'm really bringing you guys different topics as far as like what's going on, things that I'm learning. And hopefully last week, I'm going to open the lines at the end of the call. I'm going to love to hear what you guys got from last week's money conversation. For all of you who send me messages sharing what the aha moments that you got about the psychology and the mindset of the kind of mindset and the relationship you have with money, thank you so much. I totally enjoy hearing that these calls, I rush back from the gym to get on these calls on time. So I really appreciate everybody who sends me some feedback because that tells me that, I know it's worth it, but it confirms that this time invested every week has been well worth it. So thank you for everybody who's been doing that. So for those of you who did not get on the call last week, we're going to kind of build a little bit on this, but today I have been reading this phenomenal book, and I'm going to share with you guys something that I was reading it, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is so applicable really to everybody, but for sure for all of us on the phone with Herbalife, and that is what are the three internal relationship battles that every entrepreneur has. So before I do that, I'm going to do a really quick summary because this topic, the three internal battles that we have within us, is going to really be right there hand in hand with the core four concept that we have been doing for a while. Now, I don't know about everybody on the phone, but I have no problem admitting my human mistakes and my human errors and my human habits that sometimes kick in. And that is, my question to every single one of you guys is, how many of you have really, and I know the calls are muted, but I want you to start and ask yourself, how many of you have been consistently scoring yourself points with this core four concept? Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to have to listen to the call, one of the calls in the back from a couple of weeks ago. If not, talk to one of your mentors and ask them to tell you what this core concept is because I don't really have time to go through it too much right now. But the gist of it is doing a little bit every single day in your body, the spirituality, the relationships, and your business. And you got to score a half a point for each thing that you did for a total of 4 points. So we've been doing this for a while, and thank you, Jennifer, I think it was, who shared what this concept did for you. And I have to admit, last week, and all excuses are equal, but last week was an amazingly, ridiculously stressful week. Not only did I move, but I had a lot of personal drama in my life. And this morning when I was thinking about the call today, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have not scored my points every single day. And so one of the things I want to share with you, one of my aha moments, which is totally relevant to the topics that we're going to talk about today, and that is I have been not paying attention to the things that are absolutely important to me for 2014. As you remember, the first call that we did was all about your goals and really looking at what is your life for 2014 going to look like. And this core concept was going to help us stay on track every single day, every single week to make sure that we accomplish those goals. I will confess, that last week I was moving. I had something not pleasant happened in my life that was literally had me in tears several days, And so all of those things came into my life, and as a result, I dropped the ball on keeping score. And some of you could probably say, well, Karla, don't be so hard on yourself. You had a terrible week. Well, yeah, but here's the thing that I got this morning as I was working out. I was thinking, you know what? All last week, I did work out and everything because that's something that gives me making my mind sane. But all last week, I dropped the ball in the other three areas. I dropped the ball on my spirituality. I didn't read or do anything spiritual. I definitely didn't meditate, So therefore, I was totally focusing on all the bad stuff that was happening in my life, and I was not sitting there being grateful. So when I got that this morning, I was kind of beating myself up for not doing the work last week, and I thought, okay, Karla, stop. Take a moment. What are you grateful for? And in the moment I started shifting, instead of beating myself up for what happened last week, I started thinking about all the great things in my life, my family being healthy, and then just everything started changing my mindset. So I realized that all last week when things were going to pits, it was like the most important time to take time for me to nurture my soul, to make sure that I wasn't letting all the bad stuff come into my life and take over. And then for sure, I hardly nurtured my relationship. I actually completely isolated myself from the world because I didn't want anybody to know what was going on. And one of the things that I got present to, I was in a leadership class last night, and that is that a lot of the times when things are not going well, and this is totally an entrepreneur thing, and that is that we think we can do everything ourselves, right? So one of the things that ends up happening is that we kind of withdraw ourselves instead of asking our community for support, our community for help. So, for example, if somebody, one of you guys, maybe has a challenge with a car situation, which was was one of my many situations last week. I had no car last week, okay? Anyway, it doesn't matter what happened. But the point is I had no car, okay? So, something like that, then you just stop and, yes, I could, I rented a car, whatever, I could do this, I could do that. You have all these options. But here's the thing, and that is so many times we have people around us that are so willing to help, that are so willing to extend a hand, that are so willing to step up. Not only is it important for us entrepreneurs to be able to say, you know what, I need support with this. And not like you need help because you're handicapped, but you need support from your community, from your team, from your spouse, from your family, so that you can live that life and build that business that you want. And so I thought I dropped the ball in the relationships as well, and as a result, there I was, bawling my eyes out, when instead of I could have reached out and had somebody support me, had somebody help me, had somebody, giving me some guidance as far as what I was dealing with, instead of just sucking it all in, thinking that I was Superwoman, that I could resolve it all myself. And then lastly, the third part of it was the business. Studying, I actually did study. I read every day. That's something I don't ever deviate from. But as far as generating those actions and doing certain things in order to generate the business, I dropped the ball on that all last week. So why I'm sharing this with you today is because we're going to talk about those 3 internal battles that an entrepreneur has. So what I'm going to talk to you about is the core 4 concept is going to totally support this conversation. So I wanted to just briefly touch base with that, and I'm probably going to just completely, continue to remind us, including myself, the importance of this core 4 concept, and that is because when you dedicate that time to those 4 areas of your life, life works, right? You start realizing, okay, progress every day. It's not a home run. It's progress every day. So let's get another reminder what won't harm us, right? Really, really important, and that is why it's so important to make sure that we do a little bit every day. And when you don't, like I didn't last week, I probably, if I had to score myself out of the top of my head, I probably got, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I probably got an 8 out of a possible, whatever it is, possible 28, right? Really, really bad score. But here's the thing. I'm not waiting until the end of the year to realize this, right? Only 1 week went by when I dropped the ball drastically. So guess what? Now that I'm present to that, I can make those corrections and shift the direction of how I'm doing things this week and on. So this is why it's so important to take note every single week rather than waiting for the end of the month, waiting for the 90 days, waiting for the end of the year. This core 4 concept will keep you on track, not only on a weekly basis, but really on a daily basis if you really do it. So let's go ahead and get into this topic of the 3 internal battles that all the entrepreneurs have. And that is, I want you guys to write this down if you have something to write in front of you. And that is that as an entrepreneur, first of all, and you guys bear with me, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, okay? But here's the thing. Not everyone is an entrepreneur, okay? I know we all want to believe that we are, but not everybody was born an entrepreneur. What many times happens is that, you're at work and this also will give you a big aha why a lot of your team members start the business and then drop out, okay? So this conversation is not only for yourself, but also for you to understand your team. And that is, a lot of the times what ends up happening is, people are at work and they're frustrated and they're upset and they're like, I don't like this job. I don't blah, 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 my boss and this and that and this and that and this and that, right? And then all of a sudden something happens, okay? For example, I'll give you a quick example. One of my friends is actually, I don't want to say that in case you meet my friend one day. Let's see, candle making. I'm looking at a candle. Okay, so all right. So let's say one day somebody's making candles. They work for a living. They make candles, and they're so good. They're so artistic. They're the ones that put the aroma in the candles. They're like the candle maker, right? And something happens at work, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I'm out of here. My boss is an idiot. He hardly knows how to treat people. He hardly knows how to work this business. If it weren't for me, he or she wouldn't even have a candle business. And this John, for example, John, the candle maker, all of a sudden gets this idea. I am going to start my own candle business. And here's where the challenge lies, and that is, as an entrepreneur, inside of us, we as a business owner, okay, there are three things that must be in play for a business to be completely successful. I don't mean completely like it's always going to be, but for the business to be successful. And you want to write this down. And that is those internal three things that all of us must have within us. And if we want to succeed, we must dedicate time in developing them. And the number one thing, obviously, is you have that side of you. I'm going to call them personalities, okay? You've got that entrepreneur personality. And this first personality is this candle maker, John. In that moment, his entrepreneur personality kicked in, and that is entrepreneur personality equals vision. They're the dreamer. They're the ones that want to create something. They're the ones that get those ideas. They're the ones that are like, yes, they're visionary. They're like, oh my God, they can see a whole idea out of it. They dream about the kind of business they're going to have. They just love to create. Okay, and that is really important because as a business, all businesses must have vision as far as like where you're going. I love what Marta, President's team member from Texas, always says, if you don't know where you're going, you've already arrived. I love that because it's so true. Like if you don't know where you're going, you've already arrived to your destination. Okay, so the number one thing that all businesses must have as a personality is our entrepreneurship personality, and this is really great. However, the entrepreneur is the one that always has his vision and is like a dreamer, and they're like in la-la land, right? And they're super fun to be around them, okay? Now, as a result of that, then you start doing this business. However, that's not the way a business will be successful, because if you live in this vision, but you're not doing the second part, and that is number two, and that is your manager personality. Okay, and this manager personality is the person that likes to have things in order, likes to have processes, likes to have procedures, likes to is more like pragmatic, okay? And they like to plan, they like to have order, they just like to really have things go as they should. So, for example, if an entrepreneur is the person who has the vision, like, oh my God, we're going to create this candle business, and it's going to look like this, and it's going to smell like that, right? The manager personality within you would come out and say, okay, we have to have these boxes to put all these candles, all the wax in order. The different scents need to go in these boxes. They need to be labeled like this. And then we need to have like an assembly line so that we can make sure that as we're doing the things, the candles, blah, blah, blah. And then we need to have the boxes. The boxes need to be stored here. So when we package the candles, like that. The manager is the one that likes to have order, likes to process things. The manager is the one that puts things aligned with the vision that the entrepreneur has inside of them. Here's the conflict, number one, okay, the first conflict, and that is, as an entrepreneur, you don't want to have a boss. At the same time, these three personalities within you want to be free and don't want to have a boss. That's the whole reason why you started your own business in the first place. But at the same time, you start bossing each other around. These internal personalities within you, the entrepreneur is like, oh my God, we're going to do this vision, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Or let's talk about Herbalife, the fit camps, right? We're going to have this fit camp, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then the manager within you goes, okay, We need to have clipboards. We need to have wellness evaluation forms. We need to have the scale. We need to do this. The scale's going to go here. And now the manager within you is telling the entrepreneur within you what to do. And sometimes, because if whatever it is that you're, whoever wins the battle, right? If the entrepreneur is winning, you have this huge vision. You get to the fit camp, and nothing's in order. It's like, oh man, I forgot the clipboards, I forgot this, I forgot that. And then the manager turns to the entrepreneur side of you and says, see, you're fired, right? And then the entrepreneur within you goes, well, if it wasn't for my vision, we wouldn't even be here. And you start having these internal battles within you. Now, to add one more thing to this, in addition to having a manager, okay, and like the manager puts things in order, the entrepreneur makes the mess, right? And the manager, like the one that's constantly cleaning up the mess. And I don't mean mess like it's bad, okay? I mean like, you do a fit camp and you have 30,000 people that show up and nothing's in order. The manager turns to the entrepreneur and goes, oh my God, I can't believe you have nothing organized, da 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 da. And then the entrepreneur side in you turns to the manager of you and says, hello, if it wasn't for me, these people wouldn't even be here. So, okay, so that's the second part of personality, and that is the manager within you. Now, in addition to this, if that was not enough, in addition to this, within you, you have the third personality, and that is the technician. Now, this technician, he is the doer. Okay, he's the one that wants to get it right. You have to do it. In order to get it right, you got to do it yourself. He's like, he does it. He loves to just like execute. This is the executor part of you. Okay, and the executor, the technician, really gets bothered with the entrepreneur side of you, because the technician, the doer inside of you, thinks that this whole entrepreneur vision dreamer is like such a waste of time. Like, really? Do you really have to spend all this time doing a vision board? Do you really have to do this the whole time, drawing out your organization and how you're going to get to the next level? Let's just work. Now, here's the thing, and I'm going to take a lot of time, well, not a lot, but I'm going to take the rest of the call to talk about this technician part within us, because 90% of the people that go into business get dominated by the technician part, and that is they're the doers. They love to work. So they love what they do for the most part, right? Like let's say if you're starting to do Herbalife and you're doing fit camps, maybe you're like a fitness guru and you just love working out and you love, doing the workouts. You love all that stuff, right? You love doing the weight loss challenges. You love doing the HOM. You love doing the flyers, and you love the whole work part of it, right? Here's the challenge with that, and I mean it's not a challenge, but here's the here's the challenge with that. That this part of you can, because it's so much, quote unquote, more fun, right, to actually be in action, which is really, really important, because without action, nothing else gets done. But what ends up happening a lot of the times is, because this is a primary part within us, that we're just executing, that many times, I mean, I know in Herbalife, they always say there's no wrong plan. You do it enough, it'll turn out. I'm going to challenge that a little bit, okay? And that is, yes, while it is true that there's no perfect plan, and as long as you keep doing it, it's going to turn out, okay, that is a total technician entrepreneur side speaking. And the three things start battling with each other, because the technician part of you tells the manager, dude, quit freaking planning. Like, all this planning, all this organizing, all this, getting things in order is such a waste of time. And the technician tells the entrepreneur, dreamer, visionary, the entrepreneur part and the technician part within you are the ones that fight the most. Because the visionary is like creating this dream and all this stuff, and the technician within you is like, really, Karla? Like, that's just me, right? Stop planning, stop dreaming, get to work. Stop blah, 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 just do it, execute, right? And while that is a good idea, right, because without action, nothing gets done, the challenge with this is a lot of businesses, why they get burned out, or a lot of distributors or a lot of, people, why they get burned out is because what ends up happening is that part of you, that technician part of you, completely takes over. And because you need to nourish the entrepreneurship side of you, if you don't plan, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a goal, what ends up happening is this technician part is just work, right? And then you're like, what am I working for? And you don't get the results, and there you are 6 months later in the fit camp, and nothing's happening, or there you are with the nutritional club 6 months later, and nothing's really happening, and you're like, really, this is not worth it. Or let's just put it in tangible things, right? Let's say you want to lose 10 pounds, and all of a sudden this, the entrepreneur side of you is like vision. You're like, I'm going to look so hot, summertime, springtime, and then wear a bikini, and you're like, okay, this is my vision. You put this dream board together. The manager inside of you is like, okay, I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to cook my meals. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put everything in order. I'm going to have this workout. I'm going to work out. And you're like, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to work out. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do that. The technician part of you is like, all right, let's do it. And you start executing, right? And there you are, and the technician part of you totally takes over, and it's like in it to win it, right? And it's constantly like working, takes over. You get on the scale, you didn't lose 5 pounds. You're like, dang it, this is not after all this work, after all this, hard sweat, after all this meal planning, and I didn't even lose a pound. Or you're like, after all these flyers, after all this fit camp, and nothing's really happening. The technician, if you don't continuously revisit the entrepreneur part of you, to revisit your vision, to revisit your dream, to revisit where you're going, and if you don't revisit your manager side of you, how you can be more productive, how you can put things in order, how you can get things done in a more orderly fashion, the technician side of you will burn out. And all of a sudden, there you are 6 months later, and you want to throw the towel. I can tell you this because it happened to me more than one time, okay? I'm going to share with you guys really quick how this plays out. When I was reading this, I was like, oh, my gosh, this is so true. Because when I first started my Herbalife business, I was a supervisor, right? And it was August, and I was ready to quit, right? Because I had been working from June, July, August. I've been doing the flyers, from 8 to 11. I was doing flyers. From 11 to 1, I was doing pull tabs. From 1 to 2, I was eating. From 2 to 5, I was doing calls. From 5 to 6, I was getting ready. From 6, I would drive down to HOM. From 7 to 8, training from 8 to 9. 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday, Thursday was everything except the HOM. And I did this for 3 months straight, almost 3 months straight, 2.5 months. And nothing had happened. Nothing. Because here's the situation. I was doing the plan. And yes, while they tell you do not change your plan, that's true. But I'm not saying that I should have changed my plan as far as the flyers and all this stuff. But I wasn't I had the vision for a little bit. I put things in order. And then the rest of the 2.5 months, all I did was execute. I didn't revisit my vision. I didn't revisit the plan. I didn't revisit certain things. I'm not telling you I should have changed my plan. What I am telling you is that had I continuously revisit, how can I improve this? Continue with my plan, but how can I make this better? What book could I read that would change my personality so I can have more confidence on the phone so that the people that I'm booking to the classes will actually show up? I wasn't doing that. I was just like this robot, just go, 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 go. And August 18th, 19th, I was ready to throw the towel. But what ended up happening was, luckily, something occurred that I needed $2,000, and I stayed to make the $2,000. As a result, the last week of August, I qualified 3 supervisors because of all the business that I had been doing. Constantly, they started accumulating. Boom, the bubble bursted, right? But here's what I did great. And that is as soon as that happened, I did 13,000 volume points. I made my $2,000 that I needed that week, okay? And then in September, I don't know where I got this, probably some video, because I used to watch HBN on Herbalife every single day. Every day. That was my training. I didn't have, a mentor that was calling me. I never had any of that. And what ended up happening was my mentor was Herbalife, was Mark Hughes, was Jim Rohn, was HBN. That September, what ended up happening was, I don't know where I learned this, I sat down and I created a plan. And that month, in September, I continued to be the technician, but I brought back in the entrepreneur side of me, and I sat down and I drew out my team. Okay, I drew out who I had. I drew out what the vision was, what everybody was going, I projected every single person, like this person's going to get this done, this person's going to produce this much. And then the manager side came out of me and said, how are we going to get this done? Okay, how is this person going to do 5,000 volume points this month? The manager part of the entrepreneur side of me saw, let's say, Victor, for example, right? Victor, 5,000 volume points. That was the entrepreneur side of me, the visionary, the dreamer. The manager kicked in and said, all right, great, Victor 5,000, how is that going to be done? How is that going to happen? What's the plan? And the plan, the manager part of it came out of me and said, okay, we're going to do this many house parties, blah, 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 drew it all out. I knew exactly how it was going to get done. The how was in place. Then the technician came out and said, bam, now let's get this done. The difference this time was in September, October, November of that 2001. What happened that was different was that every single week I revisited that entrepreneur side of me. I revisited the vision, like where are we? And then the manager came out in me and said, are we executing the plan? Are we executing the right plan? Do we need to make adjustments? And the technician was always in play. Let's get this done. Follow-up calls, HOMs, etc. So why I'm telling you this is because so many times what ends up happening is if we are just entrepreneur and constantly visioning and drawing out a plan and that's it, we get frustrated because nothing happens. But if we're just the manager where we're dominating by this and saying, okay, we're just constantly planning, constantly filing, constantly organizing, that's going to get really boring as well. The technician is by far the funnest part of us, but at the same time, if that's all we do, we're eventually going to get burned out. So what balance we need to have depends on at what moment in your business you're at. If you're just starting, then, maybe you need to spend a little bit of time on the entrepreneur part, thinking about the vision, thinking about the plan. It's the beginning of it's the end of the month. So for sure, the technician part of you must come out like full force. How are we going to close the month as strong as we possibly can, right? Then come February 1st, when the new month kicks in of February, maybe February 2nd or 3rd, that you take a couple of minutes and the entrepreneur of you comes out, draws out your vision for the month, right? And the manager of you comes out and says, all right, how are we going to get this done? How many HOMs? How many fit camps? How many, how many weight loss challenges? How many flyers? How many contacts? What do we need to do to get this done? And then the rest of the month, the executor, the technician will kick in, and he's like, by far, he's the strongest part of you. You're like, all right. But then every week or maybe, every 15 days, every 10 days, you actually revisit, and that entrepreneur side of you has to come back and said, all right, let's get excited again. Let's do this vision. What are we doing? The manager comes in. Are we on track? Do we need to make adjustments? Do we need to plan something differently so that technician can have something to play with? Now, that is a challenge. While it's not impossible, but again, one of the foundations of these calls have been having consciousness, right? Being aware, being self-aware, constantly realizing how are you thinking, what are you saying, what are you feeling, what are you actually doing? Is it in alignment with what it is that you want out of your life? So the way that you can bring balance to these three internal personalities that all of us must have in order to succeed in our business, and that is through consciousness, is through revisiting, and not have a month go by like I had this last week. See, I'm so grateful that, that's probably what, besides I love working out, like to me, the best time for me to think is like during my workouts, right? And I'm so grateful that I realized that today. It's like, oh my God, last week I dropped the ball big time. Now, for a minute, I did feel sorry, and I was upset with myself and all that stuff, but then, bam, I snapped my fingers. I'm like, all right, Karla, that's not going to do you any good. Get present. I talk to myself all the time. Get present. What are you grateful for? In a moment, I was like, okay, really? Oh, yeah, okay, hold on. My family's healthy, da-da-da, 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 right? and we take things for granted sometimes. So I started getting present to like my beautiful neighborhood. I just moved to Beverly Hills. So I was like driving back from the gym. I'm driving to the gym when I was thinking these things, right? And I was like looking at Rodeo Drive, and I was looking at all these beautiful stores. And like, I'm grateful for living in an amazing part of the country. And I just got present to the little things in life, right? And as a result of that, it shifted and altered my way of thinking. So I walked into the gym with a totally different attitude. So I invite you to not let a month go by, to really revisit these three sides of you at least twice a month, right? Do it at the beginning of the month, like to get your entrepreneur side, get your manager coming out, and then for the next 15 days, let the technician take over. And then maybe in the middle of the month, bring back the entrepreneur side, bring back the manager side to see if it's on track, and then let the technician take over. And then, like, for example, we're in the last week of the month here, right? The technician should completely be in full force. Like, there's no time. I mean, I shouldn't say no time. Yes, you can have a quick vision, like, okay, how much do I want to do this week? How am I going to get this done? And then, boom, the technician takes over and executes. So I really hope this helps you guys. It's 9:30 sharp, so I'm going to open the lines. But before I close the recording and open up the lines for questions and answers and comments, I'm going to invite all of you to please stay on the call for at least 2 more minutes, because so many times in the questions or the comments, people say something that can have the huge aha moment for you. All right, so hang on tight.